This is LP Giobbi.
Listen up, children.
You are listening to Femme House Radio.
I said listen up, children.
On Diplo's Revolution, Sirius XM.
A wonderful night is made as much by the dancers as the music. Guided as much by the spirit of joy in the room as by the hand which reaches for the next record. Each of us has a role in tonight's experience. We all play in the band.
This is LP Giobbi, and I founded Femme House, a 501c3 foundation and educational platform that teaches the technical areas of music making for women, non-binary, trans, and other marginalized gender identities. Every week, I will be interviewing and spotlighting women in music while bringing you the best dance tunes from around the world. Our next guest on Femme House Radio is London-based DJ and producer Sophie Lloyd. Pulling on her love for disco, soul, and house, she infuses the world with happy music. She has played alongside the likes of Horsemeat Disco, Eats Everything, Honey Dijon, and Dimitri from Paris. She has played for Glitterbox, Classic Music Company, Defected, Bigfoot, and Secret Garden Party, to name a few. Her critically acclaimed hit, Calling Out, received remixes from Floorplan, Danny Krivit, David Penn, and Riva Starr. Welcome to Femme House Radio, Sophie, and it is an honor to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so you've been DJing for 20 years. How have the trends in dance music evolved in front of your eyes?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. It's quite organic, isn't it, really, with trends with music? Like when I was at university, there was big beat and like jungle was massive and then, you know, it was the coming out of like the heady kind of rave days. And then it went into like funky, happy house. And then with America, it's like it went on full on EDM, didn't it?
Yeah,
which never really took off here.
And what's interesting, and I was going to ask you about, like, because this is so quick. I haven't been DJing that long, you know, but I've still seen trends evolve so quickly. And the trend that, you know, it was sort of EDM when I first started opening my eyes to dance music, which is why I had to like look over to see what you guys were doing in the UK. Like, wait, what is real dance music? And learn, you know, but then learn that actually real dance music started in Chicago, you know, like in house music, and like, wait, what happened to our roots, you know? And anyways, that history is pretty wild. But right now we're in this weird tech house. Like sort of tech house has almost become like the next EDM, and it seems like maybe it hasn't. Like tech house is like bass house vibe, and it hasn't really been as big, it seems, in the UK. And that's so interesting to me how different the trends are in both parts of, you know, across the pond.
Everything sounds a lot kind of bigger. Like when I think of American dance music, I think of like really big room. Like maybe it's because America is so much bigger. Do you know what I mean? You've got like those clubs in Vegas, which are like huge, enormous things. And when you see like footage of your festivals, they're massive. Like, you know, our festivals are like tiny little shacks.
And in the forest, and which is why I can't wait to come over there. I'm playing Printworks in December, and I get to spend some time in London, and I am just like, I can't even tell you how excited I am to like, I had such a romanticized idea of what European dance music is, like maybe too romanticized, you know. I'm like, it's the epitome of everything. So I'm just so excited to get out there, and I'm just sure that, you know, even in the short amount of years I've seen the evolution of dance music, it's blown my mind. So I can't imagine being in this industry for 20 years, you know, and seeing that. But it seems, what I love about you is that like you stick to the classics. Like I think when I think of you, I think of like classic house music, and I think that's probably why I'm so drawn to you.
Oh, well, thank you. I play a lot of kind of diverse stuff, I guess. Like, I'm disco, house, 80s. I mean, I was just, you know, doing my radio show today, and I was just like, I was playing Italo, and it just went from like really bizarre, you know, going through my record collection. It's definitely diverse.
Yeah,
and
totally. And obviously it's funny, and maybe I'm using the wrong verbiage, but to me, like, even though that is quite a spread of genres, those are, to me, are all classic. Those to me all like signify like real dance music. Versus maybe some of the stuff we have out here. I'm not to be too negative, but okay. So tell me everything about the making of Calling Out, because that track is. I'll just like very briefly. I mean, I'm sure you've heard 1,000 of these stories, but the first time I heard that was who was playing it. I think it was oh my gosh, what are their names? Okay, I was at a show in San Francisco, and there was an after party. The band played, and then the same band did the after party. You know the band. They are a live electronic.
Are they English or American?
They're you know what? I don't think they're American. They're a live electronic band.
Like Hot Chip or
Space.
something?
Yeah, it's Hot Chip. It's Hot Chip. Wow, how did you just do that? That could have been anybody. So I saw Hot Chip played at my boyfriend has a venue in San Francisco, and they had like a big opening party, and it was Hot Chip. And then Hot Chip played, also did a DJ set, turned around immediately on the same stage and did a DJ set, and they opened with Calling Out, and I was like, what? And I kept trying to Shazam the track like 1,000 times just like to make sure that it was the right track, because I was like, this is everything. Like, this is the kind of positive, joyous music I would listen to all the time. I became obsessed with it. So first of all, thank you for making that record. It's so full of joy. It makes me feel so good. The piano line in it, I mean, I just like, and then finding all the remixes of it that are so good. So how did that track come to be?
It's a kind of a weird story. So when my daughter was teeny tiny, she was probably about 6 months old when the track was when we made the track, and I had got really sick after I'd given birth and was in hospital for like 3 weeks. I got sepsis and nearly died. So it was kind of like quite an insane time, you know, like motherhood anyways is insane. And just being like tired, and also like as a female DJ, you worry and you go, am I going to work after having a child? You know, it's all these things going through your head. I mean, I think anyone who's freelance really has got that kind of thought. Yeah. Like if they stop work for a while, it's like the pandemic. You think, oh, am I going to work again? Anyway, sorry, I digress. So I went into the studio for the first time, having had my daughter, and with my co-writer Darren, we kind of sat down and you know, I had been listening to like all sorts of gospel-y things, and I don't know why, but just like traditional old gospel stuff, and I just been looking at a cappellas and things, and then we got into the studio and we started doing, you know, writing this track. And it just, yeah, you know, when something, it sounded a bit weird, and it was like, oh, I don't know. And then went away that night and was just like, it's just not working. It's not working. And then found the Calling Out a cappella. So it's 2 samples, and the sample, the Calling Out Your Name sample, is by a Christian singer called LaShawn Pace.
Okay.
And so anyway, we went back into the studio the next day, and this kind of other kind of gospel, I guess it wasn't like a prayer, but it's like an old folk, not folk thing. What's the word? You know, like the prison hollers and things like that. The like
a call and response.
Yeah, all the call and response things, but anyway, well, that we joined them together, and it was like suddenly it just went, it was a light bulb moment in the studio. Yeah. Anyway, but then obviously because it was samples, we had to rewrite and get resung as well. So we kind of then changed everything, and then, but you know, that's how music works, isn't it?
1,000%. So how did you get Dames Brown involved? Yeah.
So Dames Brown were then, this was even more random. So a friend of mine who runs a label called Midnight Riot, Andy Yamhu, he had been working with Amp Fiddler in Detroit, but obviously not actually in Detroit, but they had been working online together. And Amp is best mates with one of the Dames and works with them on quite a few projects. So when I was speaking to my friend, he was like, oh, maybe I'll ask Amp, because, you know, he works in Detroit and there's lots of gospel singers around there, and let's see what happens. Anyway, Amp came back with the Dames and suggested them, and, you know, it was just one of those moments where it all just came together and it worked, and it was amazing.
Well, I am so grateful that happened, because what a gift that song is to the world.
It's
So
amazing.
good.
I'm so happy. It wouldn't, but you know what? It wouldn't have happened without any of those kind of elements, those fortuitous elements. Do you know what I
Totally.
mean? It's like
The
it
universe was
it wouldn't
prepared.
have done anything.
Yeah, yeah.
The universe was prepared, and also I like when we wrote it was like at that time it was like so dark outside, it was like grey and raining and freezing cold, and it was just like, oh, you know, when you just think, I just want to be outside and I want to write something where people are going to have their hands in the air and be like, you know, singing along.
I'm sure you've had that experience
Yeah.
so many times now, which is so cool. So how did you get, okay, so I was reading in your bio that you kind of came from like this brand background, so DJing for brands like Spotify, which is like
Yeah.
very cool, and even
Yeah.
like Jade Jagger, which is pretty wild. So how did you
Yeah.
turn this corporate, like I feel like there's two lanes, you know, to DJing. There's like DJing for
Yeah.
like the fashion corporate lane kind of, right? And then like becoming like, you know, an artist like song selector and like going down, you know,
Yeah.
that other artist route or whatever. How and I feel like it's pretty hard to go from being in the corporate world to sort of moving into the artist lane, and you have done that. Like how do you think you did that, and what is the difference to you between those two worlds?
It's a really good question, and I sometimes I just go, oh, how did that happen? Because I can't work it out. I did corporate for so many years. Obviously, my job started as a hobby, like every single DJ. You don't go into DJing thinking, right, my career choice is going to be a DJ, and I'm going to do this. You just don't.
Yeah.
You just fall into it, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a hobby that turned into a job, very much so. But I was desperate as a young clubber, like young little raver, to always go and play in the clubs. And you know, it still is, but very much less so now, a male dominated industry. And so they'd be like, yeah, whatever, you know, like all the boys. It was such a boys' club, so it was just like, you know, occasionally I'd get to do like back rooms of clubs or warm up slots, like, you know, in tiny clubs.
Yeah.
But it was like really hard going, and people wouldn't. Hello, me. Can I have a go? Can I have a go? And so I ended up falling into corporate because that's what girls, you know, were doing.
Yeah.
And I was offered a lot of work. So I did that for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then still carried on doing like clubs and back rooms of clubs. But it was just one of those things. It just kind of carried on side by side. And, you know, with the corporate stuff, bearing in mind that it's very, very different. It was very different, you know, 10 years ago to what it is now. If you're doing corporate stuff now, it's all over Instagram. You know,
you're like
you're
like more like an influencer, which I'm going to touch on later with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And interesting. So maybe it was because my perception now is like it's such like an influencer game, you know. And I guess probably it was different coming up before Instagram was such a thing. Interesting. I almost feel like there's more cred in that then, because it
was very different because, I mean, I guess, you know, I was booked on reputation rather than followers, which I think a lot of those corporates are very much so now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like come in and do a good job and behave well, and also don't forget that corporate DJing is very, very different with regards to, you know, you've got to be smart and, you know, best behavior.
Put together behavior. Yeah. Whereas it's almost like the opposite of that when you're going to play, you know, a club for 7 hours. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I was just like, I kind of saw that in your bio and I was like, whoa, I feel like it's really hard to transition from this like kind of, you know, fashion girl DJ to like releasing records like Calling Out. So I was really impressed with that. I actually love that was your trajectory, and also that you are a mom. And when, again, I'll touch on that in a bit, but I was really thrilled to learn your whole background and your history, and that you made one of my favorite records of all time. It was like, wait, what? It was crazy. Because I started doing I would do during the pandemic, I started streaming, and I was one of those artists my manager was like, you're going to have, like, I had like 60 gigs canceled. And she was like, you're going to have to start streaming. And I was like, No, over my dead body. Like I
Oh, did you
literally,
find
there's no,
it?
how am I supposed to DJ? There's no dance floor to read. Like this is so crazy. But so what I started doing just like for myself was, just to like not be so depressed was every Sunday I did like a sort of like played, like I was raised by deadheads, hippies who like we'd get together every Sunday and like listen to the Grateful Dead together as like almost our religion, you know? So
Amazing.
I was like, I'm just gonna play like
Amazing.
joyous, uplifting records on Sundays, like kind of carry the family tradition on. And I would always start with Calling Out because it always set the right tone. I was like, this is the perfect record for this. So I'm
Oh
just
my
honestly like
goodness,
not to
I
super
know.
fan you too much, but I love that record.
Oh, oh,
It's
do you know what? I
unbelievable.
wish I'd known.
I'm obsessed with it. And I can't wait for, I know that you're working on some future releases and
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear them.
Well, the next one is it's called Angels by My Side, and it's coming out on Classic, and it's coming out really soon, but I'm not entirely sure when.
Yeah,
So it's
totally.
just like
Yeah.
it's
I
totally
saw that
under lock and
you're
key.
recording live strings on it.
Yes,
Ugh.
and some horns as well. So yeah,
What a gift. It's always funny, like getting
yeah,
a record across the finish line, like you make the beef of the idea, right? And then like the last 10% takes like 90% of the effort. And it's like, I'll think
yeah,
a record's done, then I'm like, wait, oh yeah, like, you know, like the mixing process and like maybe if you want live instruments on it just like it takes so much longer
yeah.
than you always think it's
It-
going to take. It blows my mind
oh,
every time. It's like moving. It always takes longer than you think it's going to take.
yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, so I love that you are a mother and an artist, DJ, producer, and that you wrote your big track when your daughter was a tiny baby. For me personally, I can't tell you how inspiring that is. So how have you juggled these two things? I'm asking you like completely on a personal level. Like I just don't have very many visual representation, models who
Hmm.
have done both and are doing both. And it's just so important for me to see this and to know that it's possible. And so how do you do it?
Well, do you know what? I think there's probably a lot more female DJs who have got kids and are juggling, but just don't kind of talk about it or let it be seen. Maybe because it's not, sexy. I don't mean sexy as in sexy, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's not the done thing to kind of talk about necessarily your personal life. Everything's got to seem super glamorous, and motherhood isn't really glamorous, is it?
Right.
So yeah. So with regards to that, I think there's a lot more than you think. But yeah, like juggling motherhood and late nights. I mean, the crazy thing is that actually, when I had my daughter and she was a teeny tiny baby, like that was quite mad because I was so prepared, having worked late nights for years. I was just like, what's everyone moaning about? It was so mad. I was just like, well, yeah, I'm up at 3 in the morning doing a piece,
That
like
is
whatever.
hilarious. Wait, that's actually, and this is this is a kind of a funny, weird reference, but I remember hearing a quote from Michael Franti. He's like a lead singer of like a hippie band out here. And when he had his first kid, he said, what happened was like, I thought, oh, am I still going to be able to be an artist? But actually what happened was like my time got so much more limited. And so then when I was in the studio, I was so much more effective. Like I did things in 2 hours that I used to do in 8 hours, because like I only had
Oh
two
my God.
hours. So I wonder
Yeah,
if like,
that's
was
so
that the
true.
case for you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So true. Like now you just really have to split up your time
Yeah.
and really think about it. And also probably because like I'm a single mom and I'm like right now I'm like, right, okay, there's no one else here to do this. It's me in charge, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to nail it, and I'm going to get it sorted. Whereas before, I was like, yeah, whatever, la 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 la, floating around, and it was just that kind of like, oh yeah, it's all fun. It's like, no, let's get serious. But
I love that. I love that. Good for you. I absolutely love that. So what do we have
yeah.
to look forward to from you? Do we have any future releases or shows that you would like to highlight?
So next weekend I'm doing a Defected Festival, which is at the Drum Sheds, which is an enormous venue, which I've never actually been to.
Amazing.
And I'm I'm actually terrified because the lineup on the stage that I'm playing at, so it's obviously going to be an enormous stage. And I'm like, I'm a kind of disco, like, I'm not a headline DJ. I'm like a little DJ. but there's Honey Dijon and Louis Vega and Darius Sarosian and like all these people on the stage. I mean, I'm the first one on, but it's like,
well, you deserve to be on that stage. Actually, I think that your music fits perfectly with those people. You absolutely deserve to be there. This is so exciting. Those are smart bookers. This is so cool. That's this next weekend?
That's next weekend, yeah, at the Drum Sheds. So it's terrifying and exciting in equal measure. I'm really excited about it. I'm so thrilled. It's like, if you had told me like 10 years ago that I'd be doing that, I'd just be like, yeah, totally don't believe you. It's like, what?
That is so awesome. I love those moments. And you also are working on a new track, correct?
Yes. I'm working on a new track and it's coming out on Classic again. Great. And it's called Angels by My Side. And it was written in lockdown. Again, like similar kind of to Calling Out, in that it was written in a really kind of dark period of my life. Middle of a divorce, etc. It was just like, and in the middle of lockdown with no work coming in, and it's suddenly you're just like that. So, but I just was thinking I want to write something joyful, and then again met an amazing singer. I'm just trying to think who. Ashley Beadle introduced me. You know, Ashley Beadle from Express 2 Femme.
Amazing.
And Black Science Orchestra. So he introduced me to a lady called Pauline Taylor, who is the vocalist on this track. And we met and talked and did all the stuff via lockdown virtually.
Yep.
And this is so crazy. After we recorded the vocal and finished the track, I realised we were talking about like where we lived, and she lived a street away from me,
no!
And I could have seen her. I could have seen her in the box. You know what I mean? We could have done these meetings.
That is a hoot. Well, I cannot wait to hear it. Calling Out does bring me so much joy. It really does uplift me. I love that your music does that and that you care about putting that in the world. So I'm a huge fan. Thank you for being a guest on Femme House Radio.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
This is LP Giobbi.
Listen up, children.
You are listening to Femme House Radio.
I said listen up, children.
On Diplo's Revolution, Sirius XM.
A wonderful night is made as much by the dancers as the music. Guided as much by the spirit of joy in the room as by the hand which reaches for the next record. Each of us has a role in tonight's experience. We all play in the band. I said, we all play in the band.
This is LP Giobbi, and I founded Femme House, a 501c3 foundation and educational platform that teaches the technical areas of music making for women, non-binary, trans, and other marginalized gender identities. Every week, I will be interviewing and spotlighting women in music while bringing you the best dance tunes from around the world.